I'm Jeremy Wade. For 35 years, I've been tracking down freshwater monsters.
That is a big fish.
But wherever I look, these apex predators are disappearing.
This is really remote, but even here, the big fish have gone.
For a biologist, that's a wake-up call, a sign that our rivers are in trouble. To uncover what's going on, I'm heading to 6 of the planet's major waterways. I need to mix with the people who live along their banks and test the waters any way I can.
Yes.
My mission? To find out if these mighty rivers really are past the point of no return. Starting west of the Great Lakes and flowing down to the Gulf of Mexico, the Mississippi splits the US from top to bottom. Control of the river was crucial to the outcome of the American Civil War, and such is its strategic and economic importance that keeping it safe for shipping is, to this day, the job of the US Army. Beneath the surface, though, on multiple fronts, there are unseen threats to the life of the river. Alien invaders, toxic runoff, destruction of habitat. And especially vulnerable to all this environmental pressure are 3 iconic river giants. Is their retreat an early warning? And is the Mississippi heading for collapse? I'm starting my investigation in the upper reaches of the Mississippi, where the Illinois state government is waging a multi-million-dollar war against an army of invaders known as Asian carp. They are now swarming through the Mississippi system. What I want to do is find out what's being done about it. I've come to meet veteran fisherman Captain Ron Brown. He's going to take me into the eye of the storm.
Good to see you, Jeremy.
Yeah, good to go.
Hopefully we see a few today.
Asian carp were first brought to America in the 1970s to help the fish farm industry in the South. The vegetarian carp were intended to be an eco-friendly way of controlling algae in ponds. But the plan backfired when floods allowed the fish to escape into the nearby Mississippi. 50 years later, and 800 miles upriver, the carp are out of control.
They'll jump 10 feet in the air. We had Chinese people here. They say they don't jump in China.
Fish jump in there.
Oh, there you go. There's some over there.
Yeah, loads, loads,
over
loads,
there.
loads. So it doesn't take long to find the fish then, does it, here?
Ron and his bounty hunters are paid by the day to take out the carp. And the men are out here all year round.
We try to concentrate on where we get the most fish.
Is that going out all right?
Yeah, you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
The surface is calm, but I'm told that in some spots the carp are so densely packed that the water is like fish soup. Our job is to stir it up.
We scare them out.
Spooked by vibrations, the carp are prone to panicking. If we can get them going, our net should catch them as they try to bolt.
The thing with this pounding like this, you want to pace yourself. You don't wear yourself out in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Steady, slow and steady.
When Captain Brown judges the moment is right, we ramp up the assault.
Oh, here we go, here we go. Just trod on a fish.
They're pretty fast.
One more in the boat, others landing in the net. One on my leg.
It's a beautiful day.
You almost don't have to bother with the nets. You just drive around, make a noise, and they just jump in the boat. Deadliest catch, I think it's here.
I'm no fan of dead fish, but I'm aware that these carp are a serious threat to the river's ecosystem. The man in charge of this mass removal operation is state official Kevin Irons.
And here we are battling a Chinese fish, and Asian carp are great invaders.
Along some stretches of the river, Asian carp make up 95% of the biomass.
They filter the water through these gill rakers, and they can filter less than 20 microns, very small.
It's like a particle of dust.
That's it. They suck out a lot of the plankton resources and algae that all the fish need.
So just by breathing, they're feeding and growing.
That's right.
How are these affecting the native species?
Lowered numbers of the things that eat plankton, things like bigmouth buffalo and gizzard shad. So we've seen those numbers sag.
And what about the other species that aren't sort of directly competing with these?
We've seen lower populations of bass and other sport fish.
Does anything feed on these?
They quickly overgrow the mouth size of most of the predators here in the river. Even the largest catfish would have a hard time with this fish here.
In the nightmare scenario, the aliens spread far enough up the Mississippi system to infiltrate the Great Lakes, where a multi-billion-dollar fishing industry is at stake.
We don't want to take a chance, so we have 3 electric barriers run by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We have physical fences and several locks and dams between here and the Great Lakes. And all those things are slowing down the spread. We're doing just about everything we can to stop these fish.
The dead carp don't go to waste. In Illinois alone, around 3,000 tons of problem fish have already been turned into high-grade farm fertilizer. And according to Kevin, his men are just about managing to hold the line.
We need to win the war here.
But stopping the carp is an extremely costly business. And elsewhere, physical barriers appear to be having little effect. Above St. Louis, 29 dams turn the upper Mississippi into a giant staircase. To find out if the carp have reached the top, I'm heading north. You might think a big dam would stop the carp in their tracks, but each time a ship travels upstream past one of these barriers, it does so via a lock, which fills with river water. In theory, it only takes 1 or 2 carp to slip into a lock along with a ship, and hey presto, the aliens can start to overrun the next stretch of river.
Today's a very special day for me. I'm going fishing for the smallest thing that I've ever been after. And I actually hope that I don't get it.
I'm in the heart of Minneapolis, wondering if the invading carp have already snuck past the Mississippi's last dam. But it's no use testing the water with my usual hook and line, as the vegetarian carp don't take bait.
I'm not fishing for whole fish, I'm fishing for DNA, which will be packaged up in fish cells floating around in the water, because fish, like us, they tend to lose cells just during the course of everyday life. There's a filter in that nozzle that will catch individual cells.
This is the world's first portable device that can detect and quantify DNA in river water. A positive result would be the worst possible news. I'm in the US, investigating the health of the mighty Mississippi. Beneath its surface, an invasion of Asian carp is squeezing out native fish and costing millions of tax dollars to combat. Now in Minneapolis, I'm testing the water for carp DNA to see if the aliens have already snuck past the Mississippi's last dam.
Let's just have a quick peek at what we've caught here. All right, that's the gunk that we've filtered from the river water. Normally, this will be sent off to a lab, and if you're lucky, you get the results back in a week. What's special about this setup is that I can actually analyse this straight away.
While I wait for my samples to process, I hook up with state biologist Nick Frohnauer. How important is it to the health of the river that you keep out the Asian carp?
It's very important. They have the potential to really affect the whole aquatic community. When you have this big fish that comes in that can eat almost its weight in food a day, that's really taxing on the system as a whole. Secondly, they jump out of the water, so you have the human safety factor. They can cause serious injury.
Nick tells me that if Asian carp overrun this stretch of the Mississippi, they'd also do serious harm to an angling industry worth billions of dollars. I've barely registered this economic threat when my DNA results are in.
Perfect. The samples that you took today are negative. Flat line.
That's good.
It's very good.
Yeah. So flatlining is good in this case.
Yep, means there's no DNA in that water sample.
So what that shows, basically, is that this is still a good, uninvaded stretch of river.
Yes.
Although welcome, my result is also puzzling. For more than a decade, there have been sporadic reports of Asian carp just downstream from here. And yet, for some reason, the aliens have failed to reach the water above.
The picture with Asian carp seems to be getting more complicated the more I look into it. There is this perception that they are just this marauding army. Wherever they get a toehold, they just explode. But it turns out that there are places where they are present, but they haven't exploded. Why is that?
60 miles downstream, near the Iowa border, the Mississippi widens to nearly 2 miles across. Superficially, this stretch of water is no different from the carp-infested river I saw in Illinois. And yet for 15 years, it has defied alien takeover. Hoping to discover its secret, I'm going fishing with a man who grew up in this neck of the woods.
Let's do it.
John Hoxmeyer is a scientist with a special interest in tracking some of the Mississippi's rarest fish.
Grew up fishing in Minnesota my whole life. It's so neat to be working on the Mississippi River.
That's a big area of water, isn't it?
Absolutely. The fish that we've got tagged out here now, they're moving hundreds of miles. They'll swim from the bottom of the lake up to the top, which is 22 miles in 2 days. And so you don't know where in this circle they're going to be.
While John and I head out to his nearest net, a second team has gone to check 2 other fishing sites.
Is that it over there?
Yes, that's it. Now we'll see what we got. It's 24 foot deep. It's a 6-inch mesh, so you don't get a lot of fish, but what you do get is memorable.
Many native fish are plankton feeders, just like the alien carp, which first showed up here in 2003.
So are the Asian carp having any impact here?
We don't see a lot of Asian carp up here. They would have an impact, but we just don't see the numbers here.
Yeah. But the Asian carp are definitely here, but
They're here.
They haven't exploded as
They haven't exploded like they have further down south. Given the good habitat that we have up here, there's a lot of resistance built into the system.
Right.
And so there's just not a lot of room for an invasive fish.
So are you saying that the Asian carp need a vulnerability, a gap that they can exploit?
Exactly.
If John is right, the carp are much more likely to take over where the river is already in bad shape.
Oh, there's definitely something here. There's something here.
Feel something?
Yeah, I felt a pull.
Can you see it yet? Just feel it?
There it is.
Oh yeah, that's a nice one.
It's a hefty fish,
You can get its tail.
but not what I was expecting.
Oh,
In the upper Mississippi, I've discovered that invading Asian carp don't have it all their own way.
The samples that you took today are negative.
And 60 miles south of Minneapolis, I'm about to see one of the river's most bizarre beasts.
Ready? Here we go. Down here. So what we've got here is a lake sturgeon.
That's a beauty.
I'm guessing 50 pounds.
I would say so.
Lake sturgeon can grow to 7 feet in length and top out at over 240 pounds. But these fish take more than 10 years to reach maturity and are slow to reproduce.
Telescopic mouth. And in front of the mouth, you've got these feelers for tasting and its vibration. Whoops. Whoa. Ready? There we go. Still got some energy?
Yes, it does. I think it's in good shape. We can put a transmitter in this one.
A transmitter will help John to piece together the sturgeon's movements. Of crucial importance is to identify and protect its breeding sites.
We still have a lot of intact habitat. We have a lot of backwaters, side channels, which gives us a really diverse fish community. We have 87 fish species here.
Installing the transmitter requires some light surgery.
A bit of iodine going on.
It's like football leather. This tag is going to give out a signal every 2 minutes for the next 10 years. They can live to be 100 years old. You need these tags that can at least follow a significant part of their lifespan.
So far, what are the results showing you?
These fish need long open stretches of river. One of their big impediments is locks and dams. We want to make sure that any barrier we put in for Asian carp doesn't affect our native fish movement.
This 10-year-old sturgeon is a very tangible sign of a healthy river. We've barely released it, though, when the second team arrives back. And it looks like they've got something even more spectacular.
I really can't wait to see this. This is from beyond the time of the dinosaurs. There are fossils 50 million years before dinosaurs even appeared. So this is a very, very special fish.
The American paddlefish gets its name from its bizarre snout. Packed with electroreceptors, this high-tech protrusion enables the fish to detect even a single speck of plankton in murky water.
Oh, it's heavy. Heavy. First time I've ever held one. Even though they've been around such a long time, there's a lot we still don't know about these fish. This tag is going to fill in some of the gaps. With a bit of luck, these will be around for another 400 million years.
This part of the Mississippi has been a real eye-opener. In the same way that a healthy body can fight off infection, it seems that a healthy river can pretty much look after itself. So, a resistant river needs its native fish. But I've seen worrying reports that the Mississippi's backwaters, the very places where lots of its fish like to breed, are turning into death traps. Still in Minnesota, I'm going to get my first glimpse of a growing and occasionally lethal menace.
Those waters are having a problem with massive algae blooms. They can be quite dangerous.
Algae are plant-like organisms that are usually harmless, but which in excess can be deadly.
In 2014, Toledo actually had to shut down the water supply to a city of 500,000 people because of an algae bloom that was toxic.
My pilot, Dave Nelson, grew up on the Mississippi. Now retired, he's a man on a mission.
What I'm trying to do is take aerial pictures that would show when the algae blooms are happening and relate that to temperature, rainfall, and other factors that could be causing the algae to be a problem. Sometimes the algae is toxic, but it's very difficult to tell.
Even in tiny amounts, some algal toxins can cause vomiting and diarrhea in humans.
Take a look to the right.
Oh, yes.
My bird's eye view is giving me a real sense of the scale of the problem.
It's just so clear from up here. I can hardly believe what I'm seeing, the extent of the algal blooms, mostly in the back channels, but also in the main river. And this isn't even the high summer when the problem is at its worst.
The backwaters are often just solid green. Looks like you could walk on them.
Flying with a purpose, is that important for you?
It's very important to me because as we mess with our ecology, we mess with our future.
To find out how the blooms are affecting the Mississippi's fish, I need to get into the backwaters.
Morning, Megan.
Jeremy.
You good to
see
go?
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll get myself kitted up.
Alrighty.
Biologist Megan Moore has been monitoring the backwaters here for the last 20 years, and she says the algae problem is getting worse. We have to travel by airboat since the submerged propeller of a conventional boat would quickly get fouled in all the floating muck.
Wow.
That's a huge problem in our backyard.
It looks pretty choked in here, but this bright green stuff we're seeing on the surface, that's not the filamentous stuff, is it?
No, that's duckweed. There's a couple species of duckweed, but that's natural, native to the area.
And those are the little leaves that float free. And,
Exactly, yep. Normally we use a rake to pull up the aquatic plants and look what's here.
Okay. I would quite like to get a close look at this.
Jump in.
Oh, that's not too bad. This is interesting. It's not breaking the surface, but as soon as you look down, it is just solid. Ooh, I can hardly lift it.
For nearly 50 years, America's Clean Water Act has helped protect the Mississippi from industrial waste. But in southern Minnesota, biologist Megan Moore is grappling with the deadly case of biological pollution. This type of algae isn't the toxic stuff, but it's just as deadly.
It's green, isn't it? Most people think that green is good, is healthy. So, I mean, what really is wrong with having too much greenery in the water?
Green means it's photosynthesizing, using the light to create oxygen. It's doing that during the daytime, but at night, it can't photosynthesize anymore. That means it's consuming oxygen rather than creating oxygen.
And that's going to be a problem for the fish.
It's a big problem for the fish. Areas like this are really productive nurseries for the small fish. This is where they want to go for protection. It's a safe harbor, but at night, when the oxygen is depleted, that would basically suffocate them.
Put simply, too much algae is sucking the life out of these backwaters. And the nutrients that are fueling this algal growth are anything but natural.
A lot of excess nutrient comes in from agricultural areas. That's where we apply a lot of our nutrient, and they wash this down and comes into the river.
So fertilizers.
Fertilizers.
It's being tipped on the land, and a lot of it is not fertilizing what it's supposed to fertilize, and it comes down here and is fertilizing.
It's really a waste, honestly.
Just 3 months ago, neighboring Wisconsin suffered its worst algal bloom in over 20 years. And with the nutrient pollution flowing all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, I'm wondering if anyone has a fix. In the heart of America's Corn Belt, I've heard about some farmers who could be sowing the seeds of a revolution. Greg Langer has been farming here for 25 years.
We realize now that there was some mistakes made over the years, and we want to contribute towards the river getting cleaned up. So we're using considerably less fertilizer than we did 10 years ago.
Is that to the same effect, more or less?
We're actually getting better yields than we were getting before.
Smart machinery is now helping farmers to apply nutrients much more precisely, which means they can use less fertilizer to grow more corn. But just as important for the Mississippi is a surprisingly low-tech remedy.
You've got this grass strip. What's that about?
When we get 2, 3, 4, 5-inch rain, this whole area here will be underwater. These are very effective in filtering out excess fertilizer, excess chemicals. So in the past, the way we farmed, that just all washed down into what became a creek that flowed into the Mississippi River.
By planting drainage channels with grass rather than crops, much less fertilizer is washing off the land and getting into the river system.
Is this something that's catching on? Does word spread?
It does, yeah. Farmers talk to each other. It's a lot easier to start controlling it here. If every landowner were to do a little bit, great things would happen.
So far on the Mississippi, I've seen a worrying army of alien invaders. But I've also found 2 of the river's native giants. And as I travel south, I'm wondering about a third and equally spectacular fish. Huge and bristling with teeth, the alligator gar is a potentially useful ally in the war against invading carp. But these unloved predators have been largely wiped out from their old haunts along the Mississippi. South of St. Louis, I'm heading to one of the last reported refuges of the alligator gar on the Mississippi. I want to see for myself if it's still here.
This is a really significant species. There's nothing else like it anywhere else in the world. But most of the habitat that it used to occupy, backwaters like this, have just gone.
Its presence would be an encouraging sign of a healthy river. But as I'm not aware of anyone here who studies gar, I'll need to find one on my own. I'm using fresh Asian carp as bait, and to boost my chances, I'm putting out 3 lines. This water must be home to hungry catfish. But I'm looking for something scalier, with bigger and much sharper teeth.
Okay, here we go, here we go, here we go. Yes!
It's been wiped out from most of the Mississippi, but if the alligator gar can make a comeback, it could become an extra weapon in the war against invading Asian carp. In the Missouri backwaters, I want to know if these ancient predators are still here.
Yeah, it's moving, it's moving, it's moving. All right, here we go. Quite close, quite close. Yes! Hold the net in the water, and I'll draw it over the top. We got a gar. Fantastic. Look at that. Alligator gar from the Mississippi. Caught on a piece of Asian carp. What a fantastic sight.
Alligator gar are known to prey on young carp, taking them out before they reach breeding age.
This is something that was contemporary with the dinosaurs, and they're still here. The fact that I found this in the Mississippi is hugely significant. They may be making a comeback.
I'm pleased to discover that I'm not the only person here who's rooting for alligator gar. A few inquiries lead me to a man called Chris Kennedy, who joined the Missouri Department of Conservation in order to fulfill a childhood dream.
It took me 7 years just to get permission from my agency, so it did not come easy.
Chris has persuaded his department to restock some of Missouri's backwaters with alligator gar. So far, they've released over 4,000 gar into the Mississippi.
Oh, that's a lively fish, isn't it?
Yes, that's a good thing. Jeremy, this is my favorite part. After so much work, so many written justifications, it's nice to be able to put this fish in the water. This is what it's all about.
I'd say that's a healthy fish.
Very healthy fish. We've got issues in our big river with Asian carp. We need to really see if our alligator gar can begin to resolve some of those issues. And in order to do that, we need that population to build. That means that anglers that do happen to catch alligator gar in Missouri, I would really encourage them to let them go at this stage.
Restocking the river with alligator gar is one way to attack the carp problem. On its own, though, it won't be enough. Further south in the warm waters of Louisiana, the carp grow especially monstrous. But surprisingly, I've heard there's a guy here who likes his carp big. So I'm bringing him
Bonjour.
a gift.
I've got a present for you. I've heard you're the man to deal with this.
A chef by training, Philippe Parola moved here 20 years ago from his native France. To beat the carp, he wants to recruit American consumers.
That meat is really nice.
Oh, yeah, it's very nice.
Philippe, however, has identified a problem.
I want you to cut it and see the bone. You have to go hard. Can you feel the bone?
I can hear them. So
You can hear it, crack it. That alone is the biggest problem to overcome with this fish. Because here we like the fish without bones.
Was this ready to go?
Yeah.
In time-honored fashion, a product with an image problem has been rebranded. In this case, as silverfin.
This is the fried silverfin. Take a piece. Go ahead.
That's really nice.
Huh?
That's really good.
So imagine that fish with no bones. We wouldn't have no problem.
Yeah. It's sort of hard work. It's a bit like oranges. You know, I love oranges, but it's a lot of work getting at that orange without, you get sprayed in the face, you've got to go and wash your hands. It's a bit like that.
Fortunately, though, Philippe has developed his own secret process to remove the bones.
Here you go, Jeremy, the solution to the Asian carp.
I like that. That's nice. The taste is fantastic. I am impressed by the lack of bones. So you've got, I don't want to ask the secret, but you have successfully cracked that problem.
We won't eradicate the fish for sure, but I think we can control the population. This is the only way we have to be able to save our ecosystem, our fisheries, eat the problem away. It's a win-win situation.
In my investigation so far, I've met plenty of people who care about the Mississippi and its fish. But where are all the people who once lived off this river? And what is their absence telling me? South of Baton Rouge, I think I've finally sniffed out the last of a dying breed.
How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Jan.
Yes, sir.
Scorching day again, isn't it? Hello.
Beauboy and his nephew Jay are shrimpers and proud to call themselves Cajun.
I've been here all my life, living right here, and I get everything I can out this river when I can.
How long has this been out there?
3 days.
Are there many people doing this now?
I would figure there's me, my nephew, one man about a mile further that way. I don't know anybody from here to New Orleans, 50 miles on this side. I would say there's probably 4 of us.
Beauboy tells me that not long ago, there were thousands of people catching shrimp up and down the river.
I don't know what happened, but people quit doing it because they wasn't catching as much. Time changed.
I'm just looking at all this industry. When you grew up, was this here?
No, that was one ship a month. I used to cross the river with a canoe, back and forth, catching shrimp on the other side, and didn't have to worry about a boat. If I do it now, I'd get hit. There's so many that pass here.
What about the next generation down? Are they?
No, it's over.
Yeah?
We the last of it. I would think that we the last.
I've heard of Louisiana shrimp gumbo, but I'm a little surprised when Beauboy invites me to try one right out of the trap.
You can eat them now. Yeah?
Yeah, all good. Peel the head back like this. Delicious.
Sorry, shrimp.
Put it in your mouth, squeeze, pull. Sweet, sweet, sweet.
That's nice. It's all right. First one I've eaten like that.
My God, ça c'est bon, yeah.
For a creature this small, these guys have a pretty amazing story to travel so far. The migration is 1,000 miles. These shrimp start out near Ohio and they migrate all the way down to the saltwater estuaries.
But Beauboy's shrimp catch is declining, and I wonder if this is linked to the taming of the Mississippi. To make shipping more efficient, large sections of the river have been straightened, which makes the current run stronger. If you're a tiny shrimp trying to reach your breeding ground, a stronger current could spell disaster. My own journey is nearing its end, but the news from the Mississippi Delta is far more frightening than anything I've seen so far. The mighty Mississippi is one of the most engineered waterways on the planet. What's good for ships, though, can often be bad for the life of a river. And down in the Delta, that could mean human life. 12 years ago, Hurricane Katrina ripped into New Orleans, leaving well over 1,000 people dead and a repair bill in excess of $100 billion. Hurricanes can't be stopped, but experts believe that changes to the Mississippi Delta are leaving people more exposed than ever.
Morning.
Rosina Philippe belongs to the Atakapa Ishak, a tribe that's lived in the Delta for centuries.
How bad were you hit by Katrina here?
Katrina devastated this community. Resources were very limited. It took a long time to rebuild. We had to actually fight to reclaim our lives here.
Rosina says that the Mississippi always used to bring enough silt to maintain the land, which in turn supported swamps and forests. But then came the Great Mississippi Flood of 1927, which left more than 700,000 people homeless. To prevent a repeat, the federal government decided to contain the unruly river within a series of earth banks or levees.
When they levied the river, then that sediment that used to come in, with the flood waters, it's been channeled to go somewhere else. Ever since the Delta has begun to die.
But starving the Delta of silt was just the start. When oil and gas were discovered here, engineers began cutting thousands of canals through the swamps for pipelines and ships. The results have been devastating.
A lot of the canals that were cut allowed salt water to intrude into these freshwater areas. Salt water killed the roots and the trees died. What you see are the bones of the forest, these skeletal remains of these huge oaks that used to be in this area. Now that root system that would hold the land in place is no longer there.
With no roots to hold it together, a football field of land is being lost every 2 hours. In the last 80 years, some 2,000 square miles have gone. And with the land goes a vital defense against hurricanes.
When storms come in, this is the first line of impact.
So next time there's a big storm, instead of absorbing the force of that storm, it's just straight there, it hits the levee.
Absolutely.
The levee's more likely to fail. This could impact people in New Orleans and further
Absolutely.
on upriver.
The levees are okay, but there's nothing that man can build that can guarantee will be safe from the forces of nature.
Can anything be done about it?
Absolutely. A lot of these old canals, they need to be filled in because they continue to be avenues, for salt water to intrude. It's important to maintain what's here and to replace what can be replaced.
Like so much else that I've seen on my journey, the story of the Delta is a tale of unforeseen consequences. Here on the Mississippi, I've seen how even good intentions can end up damaging a river's health.
The river is a much more complex thing than we used to imagine. It's actually a living system. Now, we're starting to see the causes of the things that are going wrong and starting in some cases to address those causes.
But the signs are, this may not be enough. If you take a river's health for granted, it dies. And to prevent that happening to this vitally important river, I think it urgently needs a more concerted and joined-up approach.
This river, the Mississippi, has given so much to the nation of America. Surely it's the least that it deserves in return.
To find out what you can do to help the rivers in your part of the world, go to animalplanet.com/mightyrivers.